Hey, everybody, and welcome to the very first episode of the Hunterizer Podcast. My name is Tom, and we're excited to kick things off with a conversation that every hunter, especially those in California, should hear. This podcast is all about helping hunters stay informed, make smart decisions, and avoid the kinds of mistakes that can cost you time, money, or even your hunting privileges. Whether it's season dates, legal tips, or public land know-hows, our goal is to break it all down in a way that is actually useful. Before we dive in, let's do a quick round of introductions. I'm joined by the other two co-founders of Hunterizer, Vlad and David. Vlad, welcome. And do you want to give a little introduction?
Of course. Hey all. So my name is Vlad. I live in Silicon Valley, Bay Area, California. And I started hunting quite a while ago. I was a student in geology, then a grad student, then a geologist. It was not so much of a hobby and more of a professional work. We needed rifles and shotguns to survive. So I was going into Siberian wilderness, lots of bears. Also was quite nice to have some fresh meat, after weeks on canned meat and dried meat and so forth. So anyways, for the last few years, while in California, I've been hunting as a hobby. And a year ago, I and David, and Tom joined us later, we founded Hunterizer. And our mission is very simple, that hunters should not have to dig through dozens of documents to figure out what, where, and how they can hunt. And this is something that scares away many new hunters. Tom, back to you.
Yeah. And what about you, David?
Hi, everyone. It's really nice to join this first episode of Hunterizer Podcast. Yeah, so I've been hunting for around 6 years here in California, and I've also gone to out-of-state hunts in Idaho and Montana. So yeah, we try to share the hunting knowledge, hunting information with everyone. Yeah, the products we have at Hunterizer include the Hunting Atlas. It's a comprehensive guide to hunting in California. We have a hunting calendar. That's a wall calendar that lets you know every species, their seasons. You got to know every day of the year which species you can hunt. So it's nice to kick off this podcast.
Great. And we'll go ahead and we'll put the link to our website, hunterizer.com, on here. So check it out. You can go to the store, see the products that we offer, check out some of the mapping that we have on there, or just browse. We have a lot of news stories on different hunting activities happening throughout the country. So definitely give it check it out. To get us started for today's episode, we're focusing on hunting laws and legal challenges. And we're specifically going to focus in California, where all of you on the podcast here know that regulations can be tough to navigate. We're joined by Michael Linscheid. He's an attorney who spent years working on fish and wildlife cases and helping hunters through some pretty complex legal situations. Michael, welcome to the podcast, and we're super excited to have you here. And to kick things off, can you just tell us a little bit about your background and how you got started working with hunting-related cases?
Yes, thank you for inviting me on to your first episode. I am a California native, grew up hunting and fishing, still hunt and fish when I have time. And I worked as a commercial fisherman, putting myself through school. And I currently, and have for the last 20 years or so, have been representing hunters and fishers throughout California, both in court and before the Department of Fish and Wildlife Fish and Game Commission.
Did you always were you always involved in hunting and fishing regulations, or did that just tend to be something that you kind of like gravitated towards?
Sort of gravitated towards it. Being that I've hunted and fished, I have quite a few contacts who reached out and needed support. And so over the years, the number of cases that I've handled in this arena has grown substantially.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a really unique niche because I don't think a lot of attorneys really have that concentration, and they probably have to learn a lot of the things that you use on a daily basis.
Sure. Yeah, right.
All right. Well, we put together some questions for you, some things that we thought the audience might be interested in learning about. So we're just going to run through some of those. And if you have anything else that you want to kind of jump into, feel free. But the first one that we have is, what are the most common hunting regulation violations that you see hunters getting cited for in California the most?
Sure. So before we even get to that, it seems like people come to me and say, I didn't even know that was a law, right? Or I didn't even understand that, or how am I supposed to know? And that's not a good defense. But it's your responsibility as a hunter to know the regulations for the specific location you're hunting in, the type of game you're going after. You have the right tags, when the hunting times are, the hunting season. So again, that's to start with. that's where the baseline. You need to know the laws. Oftentimes, the most common violations that I see are having the wrong over limit, not paying attention to the sexing requirements. Excuse me, and those are primarily the main two, just the sexing and being over limit. There's some other issues with regard to trespassing, which we'll probably get into later on. But yeah, it's a myriad of things, but those are what I see the most.
Now, in California, are they pretty strict when it comes to issuing violations if somebody shot a doe instead of a buck with the wrong tag?
Yes, and mostly it's going to be at least a misdemeanor in California. So you're not just talking about walking in traffic court and clearing it up. You're going to get cited with a misdemeanor, and that's a lot more serious than just a simple violation.
Does it mean you can lose your license?
Right, you can lose your license. That's one of the options. Whether it's probably depending on the nature of the offense. The first offense of something could be a temporary loss, but if you have repeat violations, then you're going to receive either something as a condition of probation that you lose your license, or the Fish and Game Commission will come after you, meaning they'll file an allegation against you to revoke your permit, or your license permanently.
Yeah, and I think that's something that every hunter should be concerned with, because it's like violations can happen, I guess, in two ways. One is an intentional disregard for the law, and the other is a mistake. It's both of those, can carry serious consequences, especially when it involves like losing your hunting privileges for a year, a number of years, or even permanently, I suppose.
And the one thing that to also remember is you're expected to understand the laws, right? And so any violation, it's not, while that matters as far as punishment, your intent doesn't necessarily matter. I mean, it's a violation whether you intended to do it or not. I mean, obviously, the more serious poaching type violations are going to garner the increased punishment. Whether the most minor violations, the more serious violations, your intent doesn't necessarily matter to determine whether or not there was a violation.
Yeah, well, I think that's a good segue into the next question here, and that's about mistakes. And what are some of the common mistakes that hunters make when hunting on public land or with public land regulations that could lead to legal trouble?
Sure. So as far as hunting on public lands, there's going to be, just like on private land, there's going to be specific seasons you can hunt, specific hunting devices, whether it's archery, rifle, black powder. So you got to know which specific season you're in, what your tag. You got to make sure you have the tag for the appropriate season and you're using the appropriate device. Also, you got to know the times, whether it's sunrise, 30 minutes before sunrise, or 30 minutes or sunset, 30 minutes before sunset. You got to know, make sure you're hunting at the right time. Also, some sort of more common ones are you make sure you don't shoot across roads. It's a criminal violation for sure. Also, make sure that you know the boundaries. It's very important to know the boundaries of those public lands, because abutted against the public land is probably somebody's private property. And make sure you're only shooting things that you can take on the public land, and don't go beyond those lands.
Yeah, and I think that's a big thing that Oh, go ahead.
Oh yeah. I have a follow-up question on shooting across the road. So let's say I'm walking in a national forest on a forest road, and I see a jackrabbit on the other side of the road. It's like 3 feet away from me. It's still a violation, a criminal violation for me to shoot against that road, even though it's small, it's forest. Is this correct?
Correct. Yeah, still a violation. You can't shoot across the road in any fashion.
Oh, that's a Reagan, California note. Even any like forest roads and all, you can't shoot across.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, then I guess getting into trespassing. Trespassing laws in California, probably mirror a lot of other state laws. But how can hunters protect themselves if they're confronted by a landowner while hunting near private boundaries? And maybe they're not on private land, but I know there's always a lot of disputes about you're on my property and you think you're on public land. What should a hunter do if confronted by somebody that's just angry and let them?
Yeah, I can even add an issue that sometimes people are complaining that Onyx, the common hunting app that hunters use, doesn't show exact boundaries of the public versus private lands, and then people may think they are on a public land, but actually they are trespassing. So this is one way how this can lead to conflict.
All right, well, make sure you have a good GPS. I know that there are the apps out there that will show you where the boundaries are, but make sure you have a good GPS so you know exactly where you are, and you can show that landowner where you're located, be able to prove that you're where you're supposed to be. Obviously, if you shoot something and it ends up in private property, you want to make sure you get permission, even if it runs in there. You got to go find the landowner and get permission before you go in. Don't chase the game into the private property. But yeah, make sure you got a map, GPS to know the exact boundaries. And obviously, probably better practice to not hunt along the boundaries if at all possible too, which I know it's not always possible, but that's probably the best practice. And if you are hunting on private land or need to cross into private land, not just the word of somebody, you're gonna need written permission to cross into private property and for hunting purposes, for any purpose really, but for especially.
Okay. Yeah, this
Is
is
there
good to know.
Any specific form they need to sign, the landowner? I mean, or just some written note, I allow such and such.
Yeah, it's got to be the landowner or an agent of the landowner. Obviously, sometimes you're dealing with a big corporation or something, but you need to have it in writing that with your name on it, the name of the landowner, signed by them, saying that they granted you permission on whatever specific day that you're hunting there.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's always really good to do your homework before you even step foot in the field and just really examine the maps, because a lot of times roads might be the boundary line. And so you know if you're walking in on a trail or a road, you want to make sure that you know where you can hunt and where you can't. Up on the Hunterizer website, we have mapping resources on there where we identify all the public lands that are available for hunting. And you could definitely use a resource like that. Or David mentioned a lot of people use Onyx, but there are a lot of resources that are out there to make sure that you know where it is that you're going to hunt before you even get out of your truck and start for the day.
Sure.
Also, as David said, go ahead, please.
No, I'm saying the apps are great as long as they are reliable. I can't speak to whether or not how reliable they are, but I think you got to make sure you have a good, at minimum, a GPS. If your phone's not 100% accurate, make sure you have some kind of GPS so you can prove where you are.
And I would like to follow up with that with my personal story. So the only hunting citation that I ever got in my life was in Montana. And that's the time when we were hunting on a public land that had this corner crossing issued. And so I was crossing from, it's when you have parcels of land crossing at a corner. And so I was on a public land and I crossed into another public land in a corner. And then one of the landowners didn't like that. And that resulted in a violation. He called the warden and I got a citation for trespassing. So do you know, Michael, if corner crossing in public land has been an issue in California?
That's not something that I'm aware of, but it sounds like it definitely could be an issue, right? I mean, because if you're crossing at a corner, you're a step away from being on somebody else's property. But I'm not too familiar with that issue.
Yeah, I think there was a recent court case that was I think it was it Colorado or Wyoming that was in favor of hunters, where they said corner crossing was legal. Like, I don't think that applies nationwide, but it was a good interpretation for the benefit of hunters. But yeah, that's really important because, David, you're living proof that it's an issue.
Yeah, that's true. I think it was one circuit court case that allowed some corner crossing, but the circuit court case only deals with a certain group of states, not the others. Yeah, hopefully this issue gets resolved, because we in the western states we have so much public land, and some of it is covered by these corner crossings. And yeah, it would be really nice to open up more public land for hunters to be able to cross in the corners.
Yeah, definitely.
David, sorry,
go ahead,
David,
Michael.
is that a federal case that you're talking about?
I believe so. It was a federal case.
I think it was back in like April or so when we have a new. I'll put the link up on the podcast to the news story that we have on it. But yeah, it's good precedent, and maybe it will get expanded to include other states as well. Somebody has to, I guess, take it to court and challenge it, but that happened once before and it could happen again.
Let's maybe talk about what if you are stopped by authority. So first question, is it right that wardens have more rights than policemen in California, that they can actually search your car, truck, or SUV without any court order?
Yeah, that's true. That wardens do have more rights than a law enforcement, or at least anybody enforcing fish and wildlife laws have more authority to conduct searches and seizures than if it's not involving fish and wildlife. And specifically, you're on public lands, you're the public trusts or public or private lands. The items you're taking are owned by the public, and so there's case law and statutes out there that do permit warrantless searches and seizures if you are in the pursuit of fish and wildlife.
And I guess another good question too.
A good usual tactic. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, you mentioned, like, Vlad, getting stopped by a warden. A lot of times you're carrying a firearm with you or some type of weapon. Are there any laws or things that you need to do or best practices for having that interaction? Is it to take your weapon aside, or I never had that experience, so I'm just curious.
Yeah, man, you should probably have your firearm unloaded and definitely on safety for sure. Having any interaction, depending upon which state you're in, there's specific firearms laws that will apply to your situation too. So make sure you're fully aware of where you can be and where you can go with your firearm. Obviously, transporting it, that's a whole other issue.
Oh, right.
And the laws seem like they're always changing in that regard.
I think we have a personal experience on that. We were hunting in Stanislaus National Forest, and we were stopped by a warden. He approached to us, and the third hunter, he disarmed himself. He put his Glock back in the car, and the warden said, "No, you don't have to do it."
Okay.
So we were in a better country, so at least that warden didn't mind.
Okay. And again, it may depend upon which warden you're dealing with too.
Good to know. All right. Did you have something else, Vlad, that you want to mention?
Yeah. Actually, I did. So let's say, you've been stopped by a warden and you made a mistake. What's your best tactic? Should you plead the fifth, or should you try to explain your position, or should you try to call, take out your satellite phone and call you, Mike? What is the best tactic to deal with that kind of situations?
So my advice, typically on any kind of criminal violation, is obviously the less you say, the better. I mean, there's some people think they can talk their way out of it, but I'm more likely to talk yourself into it than out of it. But there's also in California statutes that you do have to cooperate, right? You can't just say, "I wasn't fishing. I don't have anything. There's nothing in my car." You have to declare. There's a law in California. You have to declare whatever you have. So whether you have fish or game, birds, you need to tell them, "This is what I got." And then if they ask for it, you have to present it. So if you don't do that, then that could lead to a more serious violation. But as far as explaining your situation, I would be hesitant to try to do that, because it could get twisted and you could provide more questions than you have answers for.
So you have to tell them what's in your trunk. You have to present the fish and game. The fifth doesn't cover you there.
Correct. Yeah, there's a specific statute that says that I think it's 2012 of the Fish and Game Code that requires you to present whatever fish or wildlife you've taken.
Good. Well, that's a good segue into the next question, and that is, when should a hunter consider hiring an attorney if they're facing a hunting violation or a citation?
Good question. I mean, I think if you've ever cited with a violation, not that you necessarily need to hire the lawyer for your case, but you should probably consult with the lawyer to see what your options are and maybe how to handle it. A consultation could save you a lot of time and effort. But if you're charged with a misdemeanor or definitely a felony, you're going to want to appear in court with a lawyer familiar with how the system works and can provide the best defense for you. But maybe if you're charged with an infraction, you may not need to go to court with a lawyer, but you might want to consult with one before going to see what you're facing. And there may be some collateral. Well, there may be some collateral consequences to your conduct, whether it's a citizenship issue or whether it's something that may affect your employment, whether you were in law enforcement. So those are the types of things that you might want to consult with a lawyer about.
Good to know. I guess getting into a violation or some type of citation is something that nobody wants to go through. Once you experience that, you have to navigate it. And what is the legal process if somebody is cited for a hunting violation? Can they fight it, or is it typically just an automatic fine or part of your record?
Sure. So yeah, if you're cited, first off, if you're cited, you receive one of those, it's like a traffic citation, right? You receive that on the field for maybe less serious violations. You would want to definitely, you got to sign it. They're going to ask you to sign the promise to appear, right? If you don't sign it, then they could bring you before a judge who can order you to appear at a certain date. But all you're doing, you're not admitting guilt by signing the document. All you're saying is, I promise to appear in court on this particular day. So that's the first step. Second step is once you receive the citation, you're going to obviously have a court date. The first court date will be your arraignment. And that's when, whether it's an infraction and you're in like a more of a traffic type court, or if it's a misdemeanor or a felony, that's when you're going to be advised of the charges against you. You have to enter a plea. A lot of people say, well, I have to plead guilty because I am, right? Well, that's not how the legal system works. You're going to probably, in most situations, enter a plea of not guilty, and that allows for you or your attorney or to conduct some more investigation, try to negotiate a resolution, and if necessary, you'll proceed to a trial in your case. So after your arraignment, you'll set it for, if it's a felony or a misdemeanor, you'll set it for a pretrial conference. And at that point, you will try to negotiate a resolution or determine whether or not the case should go to trial.
So you have options. It's not, it sounds like, I guess just with any other type of, legal case or violation, you're gotta, you're innocent before, or what's the right term? You're
Innocent
presumed innocent before guilty. Yeah.
And so, and on that same note, I mean, you're entitled to due process. It's not like there is a schedule for the fines, and they are pretty high, pretty steep, depending upon what the violation is. But those things are negotiable. There are, if you never had a violation before, you might be eligible in California, at least, for diversion, which would potentially, if you successfully complete certain requirements, your case could ultimately be dismissed as if it maybe never happened. So there are definitely options, especially if you've never had a violation before, and if the conduct's not intentional. If the conduct appears to be intentional, then you're, again, more serious consequences. And
I have a question from our personal experience. So I and David, we were trying to find some pigs on the public grounds, on the public area, and suddenly we heard several bullets fly above, like feet above our heads. We couldn't see who was shooting, but probably some punks or some kids or whoever, they were shooting without the proper backdrop. Is that a punishable violation?
Shooting without the proper backdrop, is that what you said?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a violation of probably laws regarding the safe use of a firearm. They can definitely be prosecuted for that if there's proof or law enforcement learns about the situation. But yeah, you got to make sure.
That was scary. That was scary.
And also that on that same thing, make sure that you're wearing the proper, whether it's required that you wear orange, things like that to make yourself visible. There you go. Make yourself visible to other hunters, because that could have ended a lot worse than it did. So,
in that case,
always know what's on the other side of the hill, right?
Right.
Yeah.
In that case, I think we called CalTip, and they told us, "Hey, do you know? Did you see exactly who that did?" And we said, "Not really, because we just ran away." And then, okay, there is not much we can do, and they didn't even send the game warden to check it out, because it was a large area, but probably not worth their time to investigate.
Sure.
How did the recent layoffs affect wardens? Do we have shortage of wardens nowadays?
I'm uncertain of that. It seems like in California they're hiring more and more wardens. Maybe on the federal level, but on the state level, there seems to be more wardens than ever. So yeah, I haven't heard about layoffs affecting violations in California.
Okay. And one question that it's an issue that we hear on public forums on Facebook. Let's say there is some news of some poacher, and there's a court case, and people are commenting that, hey, this guy got away really easily, like he didn't go to jail for, I don't know, killing a dozen deer or something like that. And there's always a question of, are the punishments for brazen violation of the law appropriate or not? What's your opinion? Do the poachers get punished appropriately, or do you think our laws and law enforcement is somewhat lenient towards the hunting violations?
I think the laws as written provide the punishment that's required. Sometimes it's a matter of judicial efficiency, or it's a matter of how, what can they prove? So sometimes you may see and I've seen the articles too, or the comments on articles that this such and such poacher got away with it. Sometimes you're not hearing the whole facts though too. The article may be written that the person's a poacher, and it turns out that it was a misunderstanding as to what they understood the limit was, I don't know what circumstance, but I've seen articles about my particular clients, and the article doesn't necessarily match the facts that I'm aware of. So just think about that sometimes that might not, the article may not be accurately representing what actually happened.
Right, and they inject social media. It's like a game of telephone where stories change wildly over the course of a couple of days.
Sure.
Yeah, this makes sense. I mean, sometimes people just don't get the full story and they just jump to conclusions and they just want to express themselves on the social media and when they don't know all the facts of the matter.
For sure.
Well, Michael, also, like, has there been any recent legal cases or trends that you're seeing related to hunting law enforcement in California that just the average hunter should be aware of? Anything new or just something that is kind of picking up steam in enforcement?
Following up on what Vlad asked a moment ago about layoffs, I thought it quite the opposite. I was thinking that there had been more enforcement, especially, I mean, in the fishing, but definitely in hunting as well, more enforcement of the fish and wildlife laws in California. I feel like it may be a combination of maybe less experienced hunters out there, and I also think it's an increase in the number of wardens who are following the letter of the law closer than in the past.
Great. All right. Well, Vlad, David, do you have any other questions for Michael?
Oh, let's say something for the next episode
Okay.
about that.
Well, yeah. Well, Michael, thank you so much for joining us. This was like super insightful. It's, I think, provided a lot of good information that people need to hear, and that, there's really not a lot of content out there that can help people learn about these types of issues and violations and how to avoid them. So if I'm a hunter, I got myself into a situation, I want to find you, how do I do so? How do I get to your website, or what's your best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, probably the best way to get a hold of me is through my website. You can make an inquiry there. Hopefully somebody can post the link, but it's linscheidlaw.com, common spelling for Linscheid. But probably the best way to get a hold of me is through email or call me at 4.
Great. And do you cover, what regions do you cover in California?
For hunting, Northern California, foothills, and if it's a fishing violation, I cover for commercial fishing, the entire California coast.
Okay. All right.
Maybe I can follow up with one question. From your practice, Michael, maybe what are some of the circumstances that have resulted in a loss of hunting privileges, loss of hunting license for the hunter? Maybe either for 1 year or maybe for several years. I just want to ask it from your experience.
In my experience, it's the intentional poaching situation. You see somebody who, I don't know the number, but you see several fish or wildlife taken out of season under the night, right? Totally in violation of every law, because it's clear they're trying to subvert the law. There's no even good faith attempt to follow the law. Those could even be on a first violation. Or on the other hand, you get the situation where somebody is kind of a repeat offender for several years, many violations, and then that could also result in a loss of fishing or hunting privileges.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
I just wanted to comment that night hunting is actually available in California for specific species, like fur bearers, right? Fur bearers.
Some fur bearers. Well, it's for fur bearers and non-game like coyote, skunk, weasel, those species. But not the big game, I guess, Michael. When you were talking about people poaching, people don't look for coyote. They're probably looking for some nice buck.
Right.
Exactly. The spotlight's involved, and there's probably something going on there.
Right.
Also, I would like to add that in our California Hunting Atlas, we have the California night hunting map that tells you areas where you are allowed to hunt, the species that you're allowed to hunt. And we should notice that you cannot hunt most of the species in California at night after sunset, 30 minutes after sunset and 30 minutes before sunrise. But those species that we're allowed to hunt, which include the fur bearers, like raccoon or gray fox in season, of course, and also the non-game species like coyote, weasel, or raccoon, or others. We have a hunting map that tells you which areas in the state we are allowed to hunt and which not.
Okay, and we'll put the link to that right in the show notes and also on screen here. So definitely check us out at hunterizer.com.
Oh, also one more thing. So the bag limits, the shooting hours, the season possession, the season limit, that is also present both in our hunting atlas and in our hunting app called Hunterizer Seasons. It's currently in beta, and we are about to release it to the general audience. We'll also put the link to that application below this video. Thanks.
Right. Yeah. All right. Well, guys, thanks you so
Mike.
much. This is our first ever podcast. So thanks for joining us and being part of this. We're hoping to be doing more of these podcasts, talking about different topics, whether it's news stories that are out there, tips and tools for hunters, or get experts on the podcast like we have with Michael here. Our goal is to provide as much information on hunting by hunters for hunters that we can. And we'll have links to our website, to our products. Definitely check it out. And if you're on YouTube and you want to subscribe, go ahead, hit that subscribe link. And there's a little notification bell that you can click on. If you click that, you'll get notified when we put out a new podcast. So thanks a lot, guys, and we'll catch you next time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
All right, guys. So good job. Thank you so much, Michael. That was great.